What's worse than being left at the altar in front of hundreds of people? Discovering that your maid of honor orchestrated everything. The message arrived while Anne Hartwell stood waiting in her wedding gown. A photo. Her fiancé and Maya Torres, her best friend of 8 years, on a private jet, champagne in hand, smiling. $4 million gone. 8 years of friendship. A lie. She rebuilt her life 3,000 miles away, thinking she had finally escaped, until the photos started arriving. Maya was back, and this time she wanted more than money. The late afternoon sun streaming through stained glass windows of St. Catherine's Cathedral painted rainbow patterns across white marble. 300 guests sat in mahogany pews, whispers creating a soft murmur against the vaulted ceiling. White roses and peonies adorned every surface, their fragrance filling the air with the promise of new beginnings. In the bridal suite, Anne Hartwell stood before a full-length mirror. The custom Vera Wang gown, fitted bodice with delicate lace sleeves flowing into a cathedral train, made her look every bit the fairy tale bride Boston society expected from the pharmaceutical heiress. At 26, her dark hair swept into an elegant updo secured with her grandmother's pearl pins. Her mother, Catherine, dabbed at her eyes. "You look absolutely stunning, darling." Anne smiled, stomach fluttering nervously. "Is he here yet?" Catherine glanced at her watch. "The ceremony starts in 10 minutes. I'm sure he's with the groomsmen." Maya Torres, Anne's best friend since Wellesley College and maid of honor, adjusted the veil with practiced efficiency. Her emerald green dress complemented her olive skin perfectly. "Stop worrying," Maya said, squeezing Anne's hand. "Oliver loves you. This is going to be the most beautiful day of your life." Anne took a deep breath, believing every word. Oliver Caldwell had been everything she'd ever wanted. Handsome, charming, attentive. The fact that he loved her for herself, not her family's fortune, made him even more precious. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Anne's father, Richard Hartwell, entered, distinguished in his tailored tuxedo. Something in his expression made her pause. "Sweetheart, can I speak with you for a moment?" Alone, Catherine and Maya stepped into the hallway. Richard closed the door gently. "Dad, what's wrong?" He took both her hands. "Annie, I need you to listen to me. It's not too late to call this off." Anne pulled back. "What are you talking about? I know you think you love him, but there's something about Oliver that doesn't sit right with me. He's too perfect, too polished, like he's playing a role." Richard's jaw tightened. "I had him investigated." "You what?" Anne's voice rose with indignation. "Everything checked out on paper, but my investigator said something felt rehearsed, staged." Anne shook her head, anger replacing shock. "That's ridiculous. You're being paranoid because you don't want to let me go. Oliver loves me, Dad. Why can't you just be happy for me?" Richard's shoulders sagged. "I am happy for you, sweetheart. I just want to make sure you're protected. Promise me you'll keep your eyes open. If anything feels wrong, nothing is wrong. Oliver is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Now please, I need to get married." Richard studied her face before nodding slowly. "All right, but remember, I'm always here, no matter what." He kissed her forehead and left. Anne dabbed at her eyes. Her father meant well, but he was wrong about Oliver. He had to be. At precisely 4 o'clock, the processional music began, a string quartet playing Pachelbel's canon. Bridesmaids made their way down the aisle, emerald dresses cascading silk and elegance. Anne waited in the narthex, arm linked through her father's. Through open doors, she could see guests turning in their seats, Oliver's groomsmen at the altar. But the spot where Oliver should have been standing remained empty. The wedding coordinator pressed a finger to her earpiece, frowning. "Just one moment. There seems to be a small delay." 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. The quartet switched to improvised pieces. Guests began whispering more loudly, confusion rippling through pews. Anne's grip on her father's arm tightened. "Where is he?" Richard's face went pale. "I'll find out." Maya appeared beside Anne, expression concerned. "I'm sure he's just stuck in traffic." But the look in Maya's eyes was strange, something Anne couldn't quite identify. Later, she would recognize it as guilt. 30 minutes passed. Whispers became audible conversations. Some guests were standing, checking phones. "This is highly unusual. Do you think something happened to him?" "Poor thing. She looks devastated." 1 hour. Anne stood frozen, her beautiful gown suddenly feeling like a costume. Her mother was crying openly. Several guests had begun to leave. Anne's phone buzzed in Maya's clutch. "It's probably him," Maya said, fumbling with the clasp. "He's probably explaining what happened." She pulled out the phone, and her face went completely white. "What?" Anne demanded, reaching for it. Maya tried to pull away, but Anne was faster. She grabbed it and looked at the screen. A text message from Oliver's number. No words, just a photograph. The interior of a private jet. Champagne glasses raised in a toast. Oliver in casual clothes, arm around a woman beside him. The woman was laughing, head thrown back. The woman was Maya. Same dark hair, same face, same emerald dress she was currently wearing. But that was impossible. Maya was standing right here. Then she noticed the timestamp, 20 minutes ago. Underneath, a text message appeared. "Sorry, Anne. You were always too easy. Thanks for the investment. O&M." Anne's hands began to shake. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering on marble. "Anne," Maya said, voice strange and tight. "I can explain." But Anne wasn't listening. She was staring at her best friend's face, seeing it clearly for the first time. The guilt, the nervousness, the barely concealed satisfaction. "It was you," Anne whispered, "in the photo. That was you." Maya opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. For once, she had no quick response. Richard grabbed the phone from the floor, face contorting as he read the message. "That son of a..." He immediately started dialing. "Yes, I need to report a theft. My daughter's accounts. I need you to check them immediately." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The joint account Anne had opened with Oliver last month. The investment fund for their dream villa in Santorini. Richard's face went from pale to grey. "How much?" A pause. "4 million. All of it?" The cathedral spun around Anne. $4 million. Gone. Oliver was gone. And Maya, her best friend, her maid of honor, had been part of it all along. "I need to sit down," Anne said faintly. But before anyone could help, her knees buckled. The beautiful gown that had made her feel like a princess now felt like a shroud. Catherine rushed to her, but Anne pushed her away. "Don't. Please don't." The remaining guests were all standing, confused murmurs filling the air. Anne straightened up, forcing herself to stand despite trembling legs. She looked at Maya, who had tears streaming down her face. "How long?" Anne asked, voice eerily calm. Maya shook her head. "Anne, how long were you sleeping with my fiancé?" The question hung in the air like poison. Maya's face crumpled. She didn't answer, but didn't need to. The guilt was written in every line. "Get out," Anne said softly. "Get out of my sight before I do something we'll both regret." Maya hesitated, reaching out one hand. "Please, you have to understand. Now!" Anne's scream echoed through the cathedral, silencing every whisper, every movement. 300 people froze. Maya turned and ran, emerald dress flashing as she disappeared through a side door. Anne stood alone in her wedding gown, abandoned at the altar, financially devastated, betrayed by the two people she'd trusted most. "Everyone out!" Richard bellowed. "This wedding is cancelled. Please exit the cathedral immediately." The guests moved as one. Their whispers rose like locusts. "Poor thing. I heard it was her best friend." $4 million. Anne walked mechanically toward the exit, her father on one side, her mother on the other. She moved through doors into late afternoon sunlight, where photographers had gathered on the steps. Flashes were blinding, questions shouted from all directions. Anne shielded her face, but too late. The cameras had captured everything: ruined makeup, tears streaming, beautiful white gown trailing like a ghost. As the car pulled away from St. Catherine's Cathedral, Anne looked back one final time. Instead of the happiest day of her life, it would be the day everything shattered. That evening, safe in her childhood bedroom, Anne finally allowed herself to fall apart. She stood in front of her mirror in her slip. Who was this woman? This fool who had believed in fairy tales? This idiot who had trusted so completely? Her phone buzzed constantly. Then she saw the news alert. Hartwell heiress abandoned at altar. Fiancé and best friend flee with millions. The article was already online, complete with photos from outside the cathedral. They'd interviewed guests, questioned Anne's judgment, wondered how someone so smart in business could be so stupid in love. She threw the phone across the room, watching with satisfaction as it shattered against the wall. The next 3 weeks blurred together in a haze of misery. Anne didn't leave her room. She barely ate. Her father met with lawyers and investigators, but Oliver and Maya had vanished without a trace. The police were sympathetic, but clear. This was a civil matter. Anne had given her money to her fiancé. The fact that he'd lied about his intentions didn't make it theft in the eyes of the law. Anne lost £15. Dark circles appeared. Some mornings, she forgot for a blissful moment. Then reality would crash back, and the pain was so intense she could barely breathe. One night she found herself in her bathroom, staring at bottles of pills in her medicine cabinet. It would be so easy. Her father's voice came from the doorway. "Don't. Please, Annie. Don't let them win like this." Anne turned to face him, and the look in his eyes broke something inside her. "I can't do this anymore, Dad," she whispered. "Everyone knows. Everyone is talking about what an idiot I am." Richard crossed the bathroom and pulled her into his arms. "You're not stupid. You trusted someone you loved. That's not stupidity, that's courage. They're the ones who are broken, not you. I don't feel strong. I feel destroyed. Then we'll rebuild you, one day at a time, but first you need to decide something. Are you going to let them destroy you, or are you going to survive?" Anne looked at her reflection. The woman staring back was a ghost, hollow-eyed, gaunt, barely recognizable. "I'm not staying here," she said suddenly. "I can't. Everyone in Boston knows what happened. I can't live like that." "Where would you go?" "Anywhere but here. Somewhere no one knows me. Somewhere I can start over." She walked to her window, looking out at the manicured grounds. This had been her home for 26 years, but dreams were dangerous things. They made you vulnerable. They made you trust when you should question. Anne Hartwell had learned her lesson. She would never be that naive again. 2 years earlier, the grand ballroom of the Boston Harbor Hotel glittered with New England's elite. The annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala was the social event of the fall season. At 24, Anne Hartwell was finding her place in Boston society. Unlike her peers who spent trust fund allowances on luxury vacations, Anne devoted herself to philanthropy. She sat on charitable boards, volunteered at children's hospitals, and had personally funded scholarships for underprivileged students. "You're doing that thing again," Maya said, appearing with champagne. "That earnest, I'm going to save the world expression. You're at a party, try to have fun." Anne laughed. "I am having fun. I just think we could do more." Maya Torres had been Anne's best friend since Wellesley College. They'd been randomly assigned roommates and clicked immediately, despite different backgrounds. Anne came from old money. Maya's immigrant parents had worked into the middle class through sheer determination. After graduation, Anne hired Maya as her personal assistant. Perfect arrangement. Maya got generous salary and access to a world she'd never have entered otherwise. Anne got someone she trusted absolutely. "I don't need to meet anyone," Anne said, scanning the ballroom. "Liar. You're a romantic. When you meet the right person, you'll know. Someone collided with Anne from behind. Champagne splashed across her navy blue gown. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." A man's voice, genuinely distressed. "I wasn't watching where I was going." Anne turned to find one of the most attractive men she'd ever seen. Tall, dark hair, striking grey-blue eyes wide with mortification. "Please, let me pay for the cleaning," he said, pulling out a handkerchief. He dabbed at the stain, then stopped, realizing he was essentially pouring at a stranger. Or maybe I should just stop making this worse. Despite the ruined dress, Anne found herself smiling. There was something refreshingly awkward about him. "It's fine, really. I was looking at the Monet and completely lost track. I get distracted by beautiful things and forget basic motor functions." Maya caught Anne's eye and made a subtle thumbs up. "You appreciate art?" "I'm an architect, so I appreciate anything beautiful. Buildings, paintings, well-designed spaces." He extended his hand. "Oliver Caldwell, professional disaster and champagne spiller. Anne Hartwell, professional victim of champagne spillers." "Hartwell? As in Hartwell Pharmaceuticals?" Oliver smiled, self-deprecating. "Well, that makes this worse. I've just assaulted one of the gala's major sponsors." "I don't think they classify champagne spillage as assault," Anne said, charmed. "Small firm in Cambridge, residential projects. Nothing glamorous, but I love it. This is actually my first time at one of these events. A client gave me tickets. I'm way out of my depth." His honesty was disarming. Most men tried to impress her. Oliver seemed almost embarrassed. Maya cleared her throat. "I'm going to grab napkins." She disappeared, leaving them alone. "Your friend is subtle," Oliver observed. "About as subtle as a freight train. Let me buy you another drink to replace the one I made you wear." Anne hesitated. She'd sworn off men after her last relationship, but Oliver felt different, genuine. "Okay, but just one drink." 20 minutes later, they talked easily. Oliver told her about his architecture firm, dreams of designing buildings that would change skylines. He asked about her charity work and actually listened. When Anne's assistant reminded her about her speech, she realized she'd lost track of time. "I have to go," she said reluctantly. "Could I have your number? I'd love to take you to dinner, as an apology for assaulting you with champagne." Anne typed her number before caution could stop her. She walked away feeling lighter than she had in months, unaware Maya had been watching from across the room. Unaware Oliver had glanced at Maya after Anne left, receiving a subtle nod of approval. Unaware the accidental collision had been choreographed down to the second. The courtship that followed was something from a romance novel. Oliver called the next day. Their first date was at a small Italian restaurant. He picked her up in a 10-year-old Honda. The architect life isn't as glamorous as people think. Anne loved it. She was tired of men who tried to compete with her wealth. Over 6 months, Oliver became woven into Anne's life. He met her parents, charming her mother, winning over her father. Richard Hartwell was skeptical. "He seems like a good man, but be careful, Annie. Make sure you know someone before you let them too close." But Anne was falling. Oliver was everything she'd dreamed of. Attentive, romantic, humble. He refused to let her pay for dates, never asked for money. Maya was there for all of it, offering advice. Her best friend approved. What Anne didn't see were the text messages between Maya and Oliver late at night, coordinating stories. She didn't notice how Maya always seemed to know where Oliver was. 1 year in, Oliver proposed at the public garden. The ring was modest, a single diamond on a simple band. "I can't compete with your world," Oliver said, emotional. "I can't buy you yachts or private islands, but I can promise to love you for exactly who you are, every day for the rest of my life." Anne said yes through happy tears, believing every word. The engagement party at the Hartwell estate had 200 guests. Maya gave a toast about watching Anne find love with someone who truly deserved her. "Oliver, you better take care of my best friend." Everyone laughed. Oliver raised his glass. I promise to love her the way she deserves, always. Later that night, after guests left, Maya found Oliver on the terrace, smoking. "You played that perfectly," she said quietly. Oliver exhaled smoke. "She's making me joint signer on her investment accounts next week." Maya smiled, cold. "Then we're almost there. Another year of playing devoted fiancé, and we can wrap this up. You're sure she'll transfer the money for the villa?" "Positive. 3 million should set us both up nicely." "I almost feel bad. She really does believe all of it." "Don't." Maya's voice hardened. "She's had everything handed to her. She deserves to know what it feels like to lose something." They were both too far in to back out now. Over the next year, Anne gradually gave Oliver access to her financial accounts, first checking, then savings. Finally, her investment portfolio. "I want to learn how to manage our future together," Oliver explained. "I want to be a good partner to you." Anne was touched. 3 months before the wedding, Oliver came with a proposal. He'd found their dream property, a villa in Santorini, their honeymoon destination and eventual vacation home. "I can't afford it on my own," Oliver said, embarrassed. "But if we pool our resources, we could buy it together." Anne transferred $2.3 million into their joint account without hesitation. Oliver handled the purchase arrangements. The villa didn't exist. The listing was fake. The money disappeared into offshore accounts within days. Anne never suspected a thing. The week before the wedding, Maya helped Anne pick up her dress. As they drove back, Anne squeezed her best friend's hand. "I'm so lucky to have you. You've been there for everything. I don't know what I'd do without you." Maya smiled, feeling nothing. "That's what best friends are for. I'll always be here for you, Anne. Always." It was the biggest lie of all. The decision crystallized during those dark weeks after the wedding. Anne couldn't stay in Boston. Every corner held memories of Oliver, of Maya, of who she'd been before everything shattered. The sympathetic glances felt like knives. She was no longer Anne Hartwell, philanthropist and heiress. She was the fool who'd been conned by her own fiancé and best friend. Every news article had dissected her humiliation in excruciating detail. Richard tried to dissuade her. "This will blow over, sweetheart." But Anne knew better. Boston society had a long memory for scandals. She needed to disappear. Not forever, but long enough to become someone else. Someone harder. Someone who would never be taken advantage of again. Portland, Oregon offered anonymity, far enough from Boston to be another world, large enough for opportunities, but small enough that East Coast gossip hadn't fully penetrated. 2 months after the wedding that never happened, Anne stood in her childhood bedroom one final time. She'd cut her hair that morning. The long dark waves Oliver had loved were now a sharp bob. The woman in the mirror looked severe, professional, untouchable, perfect. "You don't have to do this," Catherine said from the doorway, eyes red from crying. "I need to not be Anne Hartwell for a while," Anne replied. "There's no shame in being betrayed by people you loved, isn't there?" Anne's voice was bitter. "Everyone thinks I was stupid, naive. They're probably right." Richard appeared behind his wife. "But I understand why you need to go. Just promise you'll stay in contact." "I promise." "I'm using Mom's maiden name, Belle Carter." She'd secured a position at Mercy General Hospital. The hospital needed an administrator for fundraising. She would live modestly, earn a modest salary, and become someone ordinary. The apartment she'd rented was in the Pearl District, a converted warehouse with exposed brick. No one here knew who she was or cared about her last name. Her supervisor, Margaret Chen, looked Anne up and down during their first meeting, clearly skeptical. "Your resume is impressive, Ms. Carter. But this isn't Boston society fundraising. We have bake sales and phone banks. Can you handle that?" Anne met her gaze steadily. "I can handle whatever the job requires." Her colleagues were friendly but distant. She spoke only when necessary, kept her personal life private, never joined after work drinks. Within a month, she'd earned a nickname, the Ice Queen. Anne overheard it one afternoon while working late. She's competent, but she's like a robot. I've never seen her smile. Maybe she had a bad breakup. She's got that look, like someone who's been hurt and built walls 10 feet high. They weren't wrong. She had built walls, deliberately, carefully, because letting people in had nearly destroyed her. Work became her refuge. She increased donor retention rates by 15% in her first quarter, secured 3 new major gifts through relentless pursuit. Margaret called her in after seeing the numbers. I had doubts when you started, but you're really good at this. How did you learn to read people so well? Anne's smile was thin. I learned by being read myself. You're too young to be this cynical. What happened to you, Belle? Nothing worth discussing. Anne stood, signaling the conversation was over. Her colleagues knew Belle Carter lived alone, had no family in Portland, and dedicated herself entirely to work. They didn't know about Boston, about Oliver, about Maya. They didn't know about the trust fund she never touched, or the last name she'd abandoned. The police investigation had gone nowhere. Every transaction had been legal. She'd given Oliver access willingly. In the eyes of the law, she'd been stupid, not victimized. Oliver and Maya had vanished completely. 3 months in, she received a letter officially closing the case. Insufficient evidence of criminal activity. Anne burned it in her kitchen sink, watching the paper curl and blacken. 6 months after arriving in Portland, her mother called. The Wentworths are having their annual gala. They asked if you'd be attending. Translation: Boston society wanted to see if she'd recovered from her humiliation. Tell them I can't make it. I have work commitments. Annie, you can't hide forever. I'm not hiding, Mum. I'm living my life, just not the life everyone expected. After hanging up, Anne sat in her sparse apartment. No photographs, no personal mementos, nothing that spoke of relationships or connections. She'd stripped her life down to essentials, removing anything that could make her vulnerable. She was safe here, alone, but safe. The problem was that safety felt a lot like loneliness, and loneliness felt a lot like dying slowly. But Anne had learned an essential truth. Pain was temporary if you refused to feel it. Trust was a weakness that could be eliminated. Love was a lie people told themselves to justify vulnerability. The old Anne Hartwell had believed in fairy tales. The new Belle Carter knew better. She would never be that naive again, never let anyone close enough to hurt her. She'd survived the worst betrayal imaginable by refusing to care enough to be hurt. It wasn't living exactly, but it was something. And for now, something was enough. The conference room was cramped and stuffy. Anne sat reviewing a grant proposal that looked like it had been written by a sleep-deprived medical student. Dr. James Morrison sat across from her, rumpled scrubs, dark circles, hair he'd run his hands through 500 times. The ER expansion is critical. People are dying in hallways because we don't have enough space. Anne set down the proposal. The foundation board won't approve funding based on passion. This has no budget breakdown, no timeline, no measurable outcomes. It's a wish list, not a funding request. Then help me fix it. You're the expert. That's not my job. Your job is to write something that meets basic professional standards. I worked a 16-hour shift. Before that, I was up all night with my daughter who had a fever. His voice rose. You sit in your office shuffling papers. I'm downstairs watching people bleed out. Forgive me if my formatting isn't perfect. Anne felt something cold flare in her chest. Maybe if you spent less time being self-righteous and more time learning to communicate effectively, you'd get better results. And maybe if you spent less time being an ice-cold bureaucrat, you'd be better at your job. Anne stood, gathering her papers. This meeting is over. When you have a real proposal, submit it through proper channels. She walked out, heels clicking sharply. Back in her office, Anne pressed her fingers against her temples. The truth was, his proposal addressed a genuine need. In another life, she would have personally funded the entire expansion. But Belle Carter didn't do that. A knock interrupted her thoughts. A small girl stood in the doorway, maybe 6 years old, with pigtails and a backpack covered in princess stickers. "Hi, are you the lady my daddy was meeting with?" "I'm sorry. Who's your father?" "Dr. Morrison. I'm Emily. Your office is pretty. I like the plant." The girl walked in uninvited and plopped down. "I'm Emily. What's your name?" "Ms. Carter. It was my mommy's middle name. She died when I was 3. But Daddy says I have her smile." Anne's chest tightened. She sat back down slowly. "I'm sorry about your mother." Emily shrugged with childlike resilience. "It makes Daddy really sad sometimes, but he tries to hide it. Adults always think kids don't notice stuff, but we totally do." Emily studied Anne directly. "You're really pretty, but you look sad, like my daddy when he thinks I'm not watching." Anne felt her walls crack. "I'm not sad. I'm just busy." "That's what Daddy always says too, but being busy and being sad can be the same thing sometimes." Emily tilted her head. "Do you have kids? A husband? A boyfriend?" "No." Anne found herself almost smiling. "Just a lot of work." "That sounds lonely." "Daddy says work is important, but people are importanter." James Morrison appeared in the doorway. "Emily, I told you to stay in the break room. It was boring. Miss Carter has a nice office. I'm sorry, she has a talent for escaping supervision." "It's fine," Anne said, surprised to find she meant it. Emily grabbed her father's hand. "Miss Carter is nice, Daddy. You should be nicer to her too." "Okay, bye, Miss Carter. I hope you get less sad." Anne sat alone, staring at the space where the child had been. "You look sad." Her eyes drifted to the abandoned proposal. Against her better judgment, she began making notes. 20 minutes later, she had a complete outline. Budget categories, timeline milestones, outcome metrics. She should delete it. Instead, she attached it to an email. "Dr. Morrison, your proposal cannot be submitted in its current form. However, the need is legitimate. Attached is an outline of what a viable proposal would include. If you can provide the raw data, I can help structure it properly. This is a one-time offer. B." Carter, she hit send, then immediately regretted it. Getting involved meant creating connections, and connections meant vulnerability. The next morning, a response waited. "Ms. Carter, thank you. I know I was an ass yesterday. I appreciate the help more than you know. Also, Emily wanted me to tell you that you have a nice smile, even though she didn't see you smile. She says she can tell you would have a nice one if you did. James Morrison." Anne read it 3 times, something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. It was the first crack of warmth she'd felt in 6 months. Over the next 2 weeks, they worked together. James provided medical data. She translated it into Grant language. James started bringing her coffee, remembering she preferred it black. Emily would appear at meetings, chattering about school. Anne found herself engaging, even occasionally smiling. It was terrifying how quickly Emily had slipped past her defenses. One evening, she found James struggling with a car seat. "Do you need help?" Between them, they fixed the stuck buckle. "The proposal is ready to submit. I couldn't have done it without your help. It's my job." "No, it's not. You went way beyond that." For a moment, their eyes met, and Anne felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a very long time. Connection. The possibility of trust. It terrified her. "Good luck with the submission," she said quickly, stepping back. She walked to her car, heart racing. This was dangerous. She was letting people in, dropping her guard, allowing herself to care. But as she drove home through the Portland rain, she couldn't stop thinking about Emily's pigtails and James's genuine gratitude. Maybe isolation wasn't the only way to stay safe. But that was dangerous thinking, the kind that had led her to trust Oliver and Maya. Anne gripped the steering wheel tighter. She was fine alone, she had to be, because the alternative was unthinkable. 8 months after their first contentious meeting, Anne stood in James Morrison's kitchen watching him attempt to make dinner, while Emily provided running commentary. "Daddy, you're burning the garlic again." "I'm not burning it. I'm caramelizing it." "That's what you said last time, and then we ordered pizza." James shot Anne an apologetic look. "I promised her homemade pasta. I may have overestimated my abilities." Anne found herself smiling, something that happened more frequently now when she was around them. The transition from hostile colleagues to cautious friends to whatever this was had happened so gradually she'd barely noticed the walls coming down. James had shared pieces of his story over those months, how his wife Sarah had fought cancer for 2 years, how he'd been raising Emily alone since, balancing emergency medicine with single parenthood, how Emily's smile made everything worthwhile. Anne had shared less but more than she'd told anyone since arriving in Portland. She'd mentioned a bad relationship that ended badly. James hadn't pushed for details. "Let me help," Anne said, moving to the stove. She rescued the garlic and adjusted the heat. "You focus on the pasta." Emily, perched on a stool, watched them with the satisfied expression of a child who'd successfully orchestrated something. "You guys work really good together." Like a team. James and Anne exchanged glances, and Anne felt something flutter in her chest. It was dangerous, this growing connection, but it was also the first time in months she'd felt remotely human. Later, after Emily had fallen asleep on the couch during a movie, James walked Anne to her car. "Thank you for coming over," he said. "Emily adores you. She's a great kid." Anne unlocked her car, then hesitated. "James, there's something I need to tell you about my past." She could see him tense slightly. "Okay. My real name isn't Belle Carter, it's Anne Hartwell. My family owns Hartwell Pharmaceuticals. I came to Portland to escape my old life." James processed this slowly. "Why tell me now?" "Because we've been getting closer, and you should know who I really am, what happened to me." Anne took a breath. 2 years ago, I fell in love with a man named Oliver Caldwell. We got engaged. I trusted him completely. I gave him access to my accounts, my money, my whole life. She told him everything. The wedding day, the text message, discovering that Maya had orchestrated it, the $4 million, the public humiliation, the 3 weeks she'd spent considering whether life was worth living. James listened without interrupting, his expression moving from surprise to understanding to quiet rage on her behalf. "They got away with it," Anne finished. "Everything was technically legal. The police closed the investigation months ago. So I left Boston and came here to start over." "Anne," James said her real name carefully, "I'm so sorry that happened to you, but I'm glad you told me. And I'm glad you came to Portland." "Are you? Now you know I'm the kind of person who gets conned by the people she loves. That's not stupidity. That's trust. There's a difference." James moved closer. "You loved people who didn't deserve it. That doesn't make you foolish. It makes them monsters." Anne felt tears threatening. "I swore I'd never let anyone close enough to hurt me again, but somehow you and Emily have gotten past all my defenses. Is that a bad thing?" "I don't know yet." She managed a weak smile. "I guess we'll find out." James kissed her then, gentle and unhurried, and Anne let herself believe that maybe she could trust again, that not everyone was Oliver or Maya. 3 weeks later, James proposed over breakfast in his kitchen, while Emily bounced excitedly in her chair. The ring was simple, beautiful, and nothing like the one Oliver had given her. Anne said yes through happy tears, feeling like she'd finally found her way back to living instead of just surviving. They decided on a small wedding, 40 people maximum, hospital colleagues and James's family. No cathedral, no designer gown, just a simple ceremony in a garden on a Saturday afternoon in June. Anne called her parents to share the news. Her mother cried with joy, her father was more cautious. "Are you sure, Annie, after what happened?" "Dad, James is nothing like Oliver. He's genuine. I know the difference now. Before they could plan the Boston trip to meet her family, Anne made a decision. If she was going to move forward with James, she needed to ensure her past couldn't threaten their future. That meant making sure Oliver and Maya could never come back to cause legal or financial problems. She called her father's attorney, Patricia Rosen. "I want to hire a forensic investigator," Anne said, "someone who can do a deep dive into Maya Torres's financial history. I need to know if there's any way she could make legal claims against me or my future family." 2 weeks later, Anne received a call from the investigator, a former FBI agent named Marcus Webb. "Ms. Hartwell, I've been reviewing your case. There are some interesting irregularities. Can we meet in person?" They met at a coffee shop in downtown Portland. Marcus arrived with a thick folder and a tablet. "I started with the basics," he said. "Maya Torres's financial records going back to her college days, and I found something interesting immediately." He pulled out a bank statement. "2 years before you met Oliver Caldwell, Maya made a payment of $50,000 to an LLC registered in Delaware. That LLC was owned by Oliver Caldwell." Anne's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. "What?" "She paid him $50,000 2 years before the charity gala where you met." Marcus showed her emails on his tablet. "I recovered deleted emails from a cloud backup. Look at these." Emails between Maya and Oliver dated 3 months before the charity gala. They discussed Anne in clinical detail. Her schedule, her favorite coffee shop, her vulnerabilities. Photos of Anne, biographical information, articles about her family's wealth. One email from Maya read, "She goes to the Harbor Hotel Gala every year. She'll be wearing blue. Spill something on her around 8 p.m. Be charming but humble. She hates pretension. Research architecture. She finds creative people interesting." Anne felt sick. She set up the entire meeting. It gets worse. Marcus pulled out more documents. "I found Maya's personal journal entries from old cloud backups. Some go back to your freshman year of college." He scrolled to an entry dated 7 years ago. "Anne Hartwell has everything I'll never have. Money, connections, opportunities handed to her. She doesn't even appreciate it. Someday I'll take what should have been mine. She won't even see it coming." The words blurred. 7 years. Maya had been planning this for 7 years. "She documents watching you, studying you, planning," Marcus continued quietly. "She found Oliver through online forums where people discuss financial scams. He had a history. 3 previous relationships with wealthy women, all ending with him walking away with significant money." Anne's hands shook. "I thought Oliver was the mastermind." "No. Oliver was a tool she hired to seduce you. She planned every detail, wrote his scripts, told him exactly how to act. He was just the actor. She was the director, producer, and writer. But why? We were friends. I trusted her." Marcus's expression softened. "According to her journal, that's exactly why. She resented being the recipient of your generosity. The more you helped her, the more she hated you." Anne stood abruptly, needing air. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. It wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was a 7-year campaign of calculated psychological warfare. "Where is she now?" Anne's voice sounded strange. "Unknown. The trail goes cold about 14 months ago. They left the country, probably using false names, but here's the interesting part." Marcus pulled out another document. "She's been accessing her old email accounts recently, within the last month, and the IP address is traced back to the Pacific Northwest region." The coffee shop suddenly felt too small. "Ms. Hartwell, I think Maya Torres has been back in the country for at least a few weeks. And based on location data, she might be in or around Portland." Anne's heart hammered. Why would she come back? People who orchestrate this kind of long-term manipulation often have obsessive tendencies. It's possible she's not satisfied with just taking your money. She might be fixated on you specifically. Anne thought about Emily's innocent face, about James's trusting nature. "I need you to find her," I need to know where she is, what she's doing, whether she poses a threat. I'll do my best, but if she's here and being careful, it could take time. In the meantime, I'd recommend increased security, change your routines, be aware of your surroundings." That night, Anne sat in James's living room and told him everything Marcus had discovered. "She's been planning this since college?" His voice was tight with controlled anger. "And now she might be here, in Portland." Anne wrapped her arms around herself. "I keep feeling like I'm being watched. Items moved in my apartment. A car that seems to follow me. I thought I was being paranoid." James pulled her close. "First thing tomorrow, we call the police and explain the situation. We also hire private security." "What about Emily?" Anne's voice cracked. "If Maya is here, I've brought danger right to your door." "Hey," James tilted her face up. "You didn't bring anything. A dangerous person is making dangerous choices. That's not on you. We'll protect Emily together." Anne wanted to believe him, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Maya's return meant something terrible was coming. Maya hadn't spent years planning an elaborate con just to steal money and disappear. Maya wanted to destroy her completely. Taking her money and her fiancé had only been the opening act. If Maya was back, the real show was about to begin. The police were sympathetic but unhelpful. Detective Sarah Chen closed her notebook after hearing their concerns. "We can't issue a restraining order based on email logins. Without evidence of actual harassment or threats, there's no crime to investigate." Anne hired private security that afternoon and installed new locks, cameras, and alarm systems. James did the same at his house and alerted Emily's school about pickup protocols. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Anne began to relax, wondering if she'd been paranoid. Then, on a Tuesday evening, everything changed. Anne was leaving the hospital when she heard footsteps in the parking garage. She spun around, hand on her pepper spray, and froze. Oliver Caldwell stood before her, gaunt, disheveled, barely recognizable from the polished architect who'd destroyed her life. "Anne, please, I just need 2 minutes," he said, hands raised. "Stay away from me. I'm not here to hurt you. I came to warn you." Oliver's voice cracked. "Maya left me 6 months after the wedding, took almost all the money. I've been broke, homeless, barely surviving. I know what we did was unforgivable. So why are you here?" "Maya called me 3 weeks ago, drunk and rambling. She said something about recovering what's rightfully hers and how you stole the life that should have been hers." She sounded unhinged, obsessed. Oliver pulled out a crumpled paper. "I traced her phone. It was purchased in Seattle, but the signal's been pinging from Portland." Anne snatched the paper without getting close. "Why should I believe anything you say?" "You shouldn't, I'm garbage. But I spent enough time with Maya to know she's not normal. She's obsessed with you, has been for years. The resentment and hatred I saw scared me even then. She planned it for 7 years. Since college, you were just hired help." Oliver's surprise seemed genuine. 7 years? That's not normal, Anne. That's obsession. People like that don't just take the money and move on. He backed away. "I already ruined your life once. The least I can do is try to stop Maya from finishing the job. You didn't deserve what we did. And whatever she's planning now, you don't deserve that either." He paused. "For what it's worth, that doctor you're with seems like a good guy. Don't let Maya destroy that too." "How do you know about James?" "Maya does. She told me you'd moved to Portland and replaced her." Oliver met her eyes. "Be careful, Anne. Please." He disappeared into the shadows. Anne immediately called Marcus Webb, who promised to trace the number and verify Oliver's story. Then she called James, who insisted she come over immediately. Detective Chen promised to increase patrols, but reiterated that without direct threats, her hands were tied. 3 days later, the answer came during dinner. "Miss Sarah gave me chocolates today," Emily announced cheerfully. Anne's fork clattered. James set down his water glass. "Who's Miss Sarah, sweetie?" James asked carefully. "The nice lady at the playground. She's really friendly." She asked about our family, if I like my new mommy Belle, and where we live. I told her all about you guys. Anne felt the blood drain from her face. James gripped her hand tightly. What does Miss Sarah look like? She has dark hair and pretty eyes. She wears glasses. She said she volunteers at the school. Anne pulled out her phone with shaking hands and showed Emily an old photo of Maya. Does Miss Sarah look like this? Emily squinted. Kind of, but Miss Sarah has shorter hair and glasses, and she's skinnier. James called the school immediately. No volunteer named Sarah, no new staff. The principal explained that with the public playground adjacent to school grounds, it was difficult to monitor everyone. She's been talking to Emily, Anne said, hands shaking. She's been close enough to touch her. Maybe a week, Emily said, confused by the tension. She's really nice. Why, did I do something wrong? No, baby. James pulled Emily into a hug. But from now on, if any adults you don't know try to talk to you, tell a teacher immediately, even if they seem nice. After Emily went to bed, Anne and James sat in urgent whispers. She's been grooming Emily, getting close to her, building trust. Before Anne could answer, her phone buzzed. An unfamiliar local number. Anne answered on speaker. Hello? Silence. Then Maya's voice, warm, friendly, the voice of a best friend. Hi, Anne. Or should I call you Belle? The new name suits you. Very fairy tale princess. Though we both know how those stories really end, don't we? Anne forced her voice steady. What do you want, Maya? What I've always wanted. What's mine? You stole 8 years of friendship from me, Anne. You took the life I deserved. Now I'm taking back what's fair. I never stole anything from you. I trusted you. I loved you like a sister. Maya's laugh was bitter. You pitied me. You paraded me around like your pet project. Every kindness was a reminder that I'd never really belong in your world. James leaned forward. Maya, this is Dr. James Morrison. Whatever issues you have with Anne, leave my daughter out of it. Ah, the boyfriend. Emily talks about you constantly. Such a devoted father. She's warming up to Anne beautifully, isn't she? My new mommy Belle. Maya's voice turned cold. That's a beautiful family you're building. Would be such a shame if something happened to it. If you touch Emily, Anne started, I don't need to touch her. I just need you to know that I can. I've been watching you for months. I know your routines, your schedules, which teachers pay attention and which don't. I've been invisible, and that's how I'll stay until I decide otherwise. What do you want? I want you to meet me. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., Riverside Park by the fountain. Come alone. Bring your checkbook, or Emily might learn some interesting things about her new mommy. You have 24 hours. The line went dead. Detective Chen arrived within 30 minutes, listening to the recording. This is threatening, but carefully worded to avoid explicit illegality. However, given the history, we can pursue this. I'll put patrols outside and near Emily's school. What if I wear a wire? Anne asked. Get her to explicitly threaten me or Emily and you arrest her. That could work, but it's risky. It's worth the risk, because the alternative is living in fear forever. They planned through the night. Anne would wear a concealed recording device. Officers would be positioned throughout the park as joggers and visitors. The moment Maya made an explicit threat, they'd move in. The next evening, Anne drove to Riverside Park, heart pounding. The park was beautiful. Families playing, joggers running. She spotted undercover officers positioned strategically. Detective Chen monitored from an unmarked van. Anne walked to the fountain. Maya sat on a bench, looking different. Shorter hair, darker dye, no makeup, but unmistakably her. Maya smiled. You came. I wasn't sure you would. What do you want? Maya's smile faded. I want $3 million, and I want you to disappear from Portland. Leave James, leave Emily. Build your perfect life somewhere I don't have to see it. And if I refuse, then things get complicated. Emily is such a sweet girl, so trusting. She has no idea that her beloved Miss Sarah could make it all go away with one phone call to Child Protective Services. Anonymous tip about an unstable woman with mental health issues. The investigation alone would tear your family apart. Anne forced herself to keep talking. You've been planning this for a long time. Since freshman year, actually. Maya stood, moving closer. Your parents showed up in a Mercedes. My mother took 3 buses. You complained about your small room. I was grateful just to be there. Every day for 4 years, I watched you coast through life on your family's money while I worked 2 jobs. And you were so nice about it. Every kindness was a reminder that I was poor and you were rich. So you decided to destroy me. I decided to take what I deserved. The money was just the beginning. That's why I'm back. I need to take everything. Your new relationship, your new family, your sense of safety. Detective Chen's voice crackled in Anne's earpiece. We need more. Get her to explicitly threaten harm. And Emily, what exactly will you do to her if I don't comply? Maya's smile was chilling. I won't need to do anything. I'll just be there, at the playground, walking past her school, watching, waiting. The paranoia will poison everything. Your perfect family will crack from the inside. You're talking about stalking a child, terrorizing a 6-year-old girl. I'm talking about making you pay for having everything I never did. Maya pulled out her phone, showing image after image. I have photographs, months of them. Emily at the playground, at school, in her bedroom window at night. Anne felt rage surge through fear. You have 2 choices. Pay me $3 million and disappear, or watch me destroy this family. And Anne, I will win. I always do, because I'm willing to do things you could never imagine. Detective Chen's voice. We have enough. Moving in. Officers emerged from various positions, converging on the fountain. Maya's eyes widened. You recorded me. Maya Torres, you're under arrest for extortion, stalking, criminal threatening, and harassment. Detective Chen appeared with handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. Maya's face contorted with rage. She lunged toward Anne, screaming, but officers grabbed her. This isn't over. I'll get out. I'll come back. You'll never be safe. Never. Detective Chen turned off the recording device. We got everything. The explicit threats, the stalking admission, the photographs. She's going away for a long time. James appeared from where he'd been watching, pulling Anne into his arms. Anne buried her face in his shoulder and finally let herself cry. The arrest should have been the end. Maya was in custody, facing multiple felony charges with overwhelming evidence. Anne had given her statement, turned over the recording device, and watched Maya loaded into the patrol car. Detective Chen assured her that bail would be set extremely high. Anne went home with James and Emily that night, feeling like she could finally breathe. They ordered pizza and watched a movie. Emily chattered happily, oblivious to the danger she'd been in. Anne allowed herself to believe the nightmare was over. 3 days later, Detective Chen called with devastating news. Maya Torres made bail. Anne felt the world tilt. What? How is that possible? Her attorney argued she wasn't a flight risk. Bail was set at $500,000. Someone posted it this morning, a man named Robert Garrett. We're looking into him. So she's just out? She has conditions. GPS monitoring, restraining order, can't leave Portland. But yes, technically she's out until trial. Chen's voice held genuine regret. I'm sorry, Miss Hartwell. After hanging up, Anne called James immediately. His response was swift. Pack a bag. You're staying with us until trial. I'm arranging private pickup for Emily and hiring additional security. James, maybe I should just leave Portland. Don't finish that sentence. James's voice was firm. We're not letting her win. We face this together. Marcus Webb provided more concerning information the next day. Robert Garrett is a career criminal. Fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. Maya's smart and ruthless. Garrett has connections and experience. Together, they could run more sophisticated cons. Marcus showed her a photo. "I've been reviewing security footage. Garrett appears in several frames, always watching. He's been helping Maya surveil you." The next day brought a text from an unknown number. Just a photograph. Emily at school, taken from across the street, playing on the playground, completely unaware. Time-stamped from that morning. Anne immediately forwarded it to Detective Chen and called the school. James picked Emily up early, cancelling his afternoon shift. That evening, sitting in James's living room with Emily between them, they tried to figure out their next move. "The trial is 6 weeks away," James said quietly. "We can't live like this for 6 weeks. Emily is already asking questions about the cameras." "I know, but what choice do we have?" "There's a third option." James turned to face her. "We move up the wedding. Get married now, this week. Make our family official. Present a united front." Anne stared at him. "You want to get married while Maya is out there?" "I want to get married because I love you and refuse to let a psychopath dictate our lives. We were planning to marry anyway. Why wait?" James took her hand. "Besides, if we're married, it strengthens our legal position regarding Emily." 2 days later, they stood in the Multnomah County Courthouse with Emily as their witness. Anne wore a simple cream dress. Emily wore purple and held a small bouquet. The ceremony was brief and beautiful. Emily cheered and threw flower petals. Anne kissed her new husband and tried to ignore the fear gnawing at her stomach. They'd just painted an even bigger target on their backs. That night, Anne received another message. "Congratulations on the wedding, how touching. Did you tell James about the trust fund you never mentioned? I wonder how he'd feel knowing his wife has been lying. Maybe I should tell him. Or the IRS about inconsistencies in your tax filings. Or tell everyone at Mercy General that Belle Carter doesn't exist. You have 48 hours. Meet me at Riverside Park. Come alone. Bring $3 million in bearer bonds. Or I start making phone calls." "Hermanitas," Anne showed James, hands trembling. "She's escalating. She's going to expose me at the hospital, possibly create legal problems. She's bluffing. You haven't done anything illegal. It doesn't matter. The truth coming out will destroy my credibility." Anne paced. "And if she's been watching my finances, she might create problems. We go to Detective Chen. Maya is violating the restraining order. And they'll arrest her again, she'll make bail again, and we'll be right back where we started." Anne pulled away, thinking, what if I go to the meeting, with police backup like before? But this time, we get her to confess to everything. The original con, Oliver's involvement, her years of planning. Marcus Webb agreed but had concerns. Maya's smart. She might suspect a trap. You'd need to make it seem authentic. "I am genuinely afraid. That part won't require acting." They spent the next day preparing. Detective Chen arranged for undercover officers and sophisticated recording equipment. Anne would wear multiple hidden cameras and microphones. Officers positioned throughout the park with sniper coverage in case Maya or Robert tried anything violent. The next evening, Anne arrived at Riverside Park. The sun was setting. The park was busy. Families, dog walkers, joggers, all undercover officers. Maya sat at the same bench, but this time Robert Garrett stood nearby, eyes constantly scanning. Anne approached slowly, briefcase in hand containing marked bills. "You came," Maya said, smiling. "And you brought a friend. That's Robert. He's here to make sure you don't try anything clever like last time. I brought what you asked for. $3 million in bearer bonds." Anne set the briefcase down. "Now delete the photos of Emily and leave us alone." Maya laughed. "Oh, Anne, you really think it's that simple? That I'd take the money and disappear? That's what you said you wanted." "I lied. I always lie. You should know that by now." Maya stood, circling Anne. "The money is just a bonus. What I really want is to watch you suffer. To see you lose everything the way I did. You didn't lose anything. You stole from me and ran. I lost my entire life. I can never be Maya Torres again. I can never go back to Boston. I had to abandon everything because of you. Because of me? You're the one who planned all of this. I planned it because you made me. Every day you reminded me of what I'd never have. Your perfect life, your perfect family, your perfect future. Maya's voice rose. So yes, I planned it. For years. And it was beautiful, Anne. Watching you fall in love with Oliver. Knowing every word was my script. Watching you trust me completely while I plotted your destruction. The look on your face when you saw that photo from the plane that made every moment worth it. And now, what's your endgame? Oh, those charges, Maya waved dismissively. Robert has connections. We'll disappear before trial. But before we go, I'm going to make sure you're as miserable as you made me. I'm going to tell everyone at Mercy General exactly who you are. I'm going to send copies of your wedding photos with Oliver to James's colleagues. I'm going to make sure Emily grows up knowing her stepmother is a naive idiot who got conned by her own best friend. Leave Emily out of this. Why? You brought her into it by playing house with her father. Maya leaned in close. That little girl adores you. What do you think will happen when she learns the truth? Robert stepped forward. We should wrap this up. You're right. Maya picked up the briefcase. Anne, it's been educational. And every time you look at Emily, remember, I could have taken her from you too. I was that close. I had her trust completely. Little Miss Sarah, her playground friend. I could have walked away with her any time I wanted. The words sent ice through Anne's veins. You're talking about kidnapping a child. I'm talking about options I decided not to exercise. But I could have. That's what you need to remember. I had that kind of access, that kind of power over your precious new family. Maya's smile was chilling. That's the real victory. Not the money. The real victory is knowing you'll never feel safe again. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering if I'm there, wondering when I'll come back. There won't be a next time, Anne said quietly. Won't there? I found you once. I can find you again. Robert grabbed Maya's arm. That's enough. We need to go. One more thing, Maya said. Tell James I'm sorry his first wife died. But he'll never have real love with you. Because you'll never trust him completely. Never let him all the way in. I broke something inside you, Anne. Something that can't be fixed. And that's my real revenge. She walked away with Robert, briefcase in hand. Detective Chen's voice came through the earpiece. We got everything, moving in now. Officers emerged from their positions, converging on Maya and Robert. Chen appeared beside Anne. That was extremely brave. We have enough to put her away for a very long time. Anne watched as they arrested both Maya and Robert, reading them their rights while Maya screamed obscenities. James appeared from the nearby van. He pulled Anne close, but she felt strangely numb. It's over, he said. This time it's really over. They drove home in silence. Emily was with James's brother, but when they arrived at the house, something waited on the doorstep. A manila envelope, no return address. Anne's hands shook as she opened it. Inside were dozens of photographs. Emily at school, at home, in her bedroom, through the window. Images spanning months, showing how close Maya had been. At the bottom, a note in Maya's handwriting. I could have taken everything, remember that. Meant I. Anne dropped the photos, backing away. She left these here today, after the arrest. She knew she'd be caught, and she still came here. James picked up the photos, face pale. How? When? It doesn't matter. She's telling us she can get to us anytime she wants. Anne felt panic rising. We'll never be safe. Not really. Not as long as she's alive and obsessed with destroying me. Then we make sure she stays in prison. No bail this time. We present every piece of evidence. But as Anne looked at the photos scattered across their entryway, she realized something terrifying. Even from prison, Maya would always be there, a shadow over their lives. Because Maya Torres wasn't just a con artist or extortionist. She was obsessed, broken, driven by hatred so deep that prison bars might not be enough to contain it, and Anne would spend the rest of her life wondering when Maya would find a way to strike again. The manila envelope on Detective Chen's desk contained photographs of Emily, playing at recess, walking to the car, visible through her bedroom window at night. These were taken over 4 months, Chen said. The most recent was yesterday, the day before your meeting. She delivered these knowing she'd be arrested. This was a message. What kind of message? James demanded. That she doesn't care about consequences, Anne said hollowly. Prison, restraining orders, none of it matters to her. Chen nodded. With this new evidence plus yesterday's recordings, we're filing additional charges: stalking a minor, intimidation, violation of restraining order, conspiracy. The prosecutor is confident bail will be revoked permanently. What about Garrett? He's talking, trying to cut a deal, giving us everything. Turns out Maya had been running smaller cons for the past year. They were planning to leave the country after one final payout from you. Over the next 2 weeks, Anne and James tried to return to normal. Emily went back to school with new protocols. James returned to the hospital. Anne went back to work, though every unexpected sound made her jump. The nightmares came almost every night. Maya's face in crowds, her hands reaching for Emily. 3 weeks after Maya's arrest, Margaret called Anne into her office. Belle, or should I say Anne? Margaret's expression was kind but concerned. The board received information about your background, about who you really are and why you came to Portland. Anne's stomach dropped. Maya sent something from jail. Someone sent an anonymous email with Boston newspaper articles about your wedding and the theft, along with a note suggesting we'd been deceived about your identity. Margaret leaned back. Anne, I don't care about your family's money or past drama, but I need to know, are there any legal issues that could affect the hospital? No, nothing illegal. I just wanted to start fresh. Anne met her eyes. I'm good at this job. I've proven that. Does my real name really matter? To me? No. But to the board, Margaret sighed. They're concerned about perception. You need to make a decision. Do you want to stay as Belle Carter or reclaim your real identity? Anne thought for a long moment. Belle Carter had been a shield, but maybe it was time to stop hiding. Anne Morrison. That's who I am now. Anne Hartwell Morrison. If the board has a problem with that, they can fire me. But I'm done pretending to be someone else. Margaret smiled. Good. And Anne, you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. That evening, Anne told James about the conversation. Maya's still finding ways to hurt me, even from jail. Then we fight back. James took her hands. We were planning a small courthouse wedding. What if we do something different? A real ceremony. We show Maya that she didn't break us. Anne recognized the wisdom in his words. Maya's power came from Anne's shame and fear. Taking that away might be the only way to truly be free. Okay, let's do it. A real wedding. They planned quickly. A garden ceremony in 2 weeks. 40 guests, including colleagues, James's family, and Anne's parents from Boston. When Anne called her father, he was cautious. Are you sure, Annie? When that woman is still out there? She's in jail, Dad. I'm tired of living in fear. I'm tired of hiding who I am. The day of the ceremony arrived bright and clear. The venue was a small garden with a gazebo draped in white flowers. Anne wore a simple ivory dress, nothing like the elaborate Vera Wang from 3 years ago, but beautiful. Emily, in lavender, was beside herself with excitement. This is like a do-over wedding. Anne's parents arrived early, her mother tearing up. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Happy, really happy. The guests settled. The quartet began playing. Anne stood at the back with her father. Ready? Richard asked. More than ready. They took the first steps. The guests turned, smiling. It was perfect. And then chaos erupted. Stop! Stop this wedding right now! Everyone turned. Maya Torres burst through the entrance, flanked by 2 men. She looked wild. Disheveled hair, smeared makeup. Someone behind her was filming. "This wedding is a fraud!" Maya screamed, advancing down the aisle. "This woman is a liar!" Security guards tried to intercept her, but one of her companions shoved them aside. Detective Chen appeared from the back, calling for backup. But Maya was already at the front, standing between Anne and James. "How did you get out?" Anne demanded. "I have friends. Did you think prison could hold me?" Maya's laugh was unhinged. "I told you this wasn't over." James positioned himself between Maya and Emily. "You need to leave now. Let them arrest me in front of everyone. But first, these nice folks deserve to know who they're celebrating." Maya turned to the crowd. "This is Anne Hartwell, pharmaceutical heiress. 3 years ago, I was her best friend. She stole my life, so I took it back. I made her fall in love with a man I hired. I planned her cathedral wedding. Then I destroyed it all and took her money." Gasps rippled through the guests. Maya continued, voice rising. "She came to Portland to hide, to pretend to be Belle Carter. She lied to all of you. And now she's playing house with this doctor and his daughter, trying to have the perfect life I deserved." "That's enough," James cut through her rant. Emily started to cry. The sound pierced through the chaos. Anne's protective instinct overpowered her fear. She stepped forward, directly facing Maya. "You're right," Anne said, her voice carrying across the garden. "You're right about almost everything." Even Maya seemed surprised. "You planned it for years. You orchestrated everything. You destroyed my wedding. You stole millions. And yes, I was naive enough to believe you were my friend." Anne's voice grew stronger. "But you know what, Maya? You didn't destroy me. You didn't break me. You tried, and God knows you came close. But I survived. I rebuilt, and I found real love, not the fake performance Oliver gave me, but something genuine." "Genuine?" Maya laughed bitterly. "I know he does. Because unlike Oliver, James knows everything about me, all my mistakes, all my trauma, all my fears. And he loves me anyway. That's what real love looks like." Anne looked at the gathered guests. "You all deserve to know the truth. Yes, I'm Anne Hartwell. Yes, I came to Portland to escape my past. Yes, I used a different name because I was ashamed." She gestured to Maya. "This woman was my best friend for 8 years. She planned an elaborate con. Destroyed my wedding, stole $4 million, then came back to terrorize my new family. She stalked my stepdaughter. She threatened her." Anne pulled out her phone, showing photos Detective Chen had given her. Maya's arrest, police reports, court documents. She's supposed to be in jail right now, but she came anyway because she can't let go of her obsession. Maya's face contorted. "You stole everything from me." "I never stole anything. You were my friend. I loved you, I trusted you. And you repaid that by spending years plotting my destruction out of twisted jealousy." Anne's voice broke slightly. "You want to know what's really pathetic? Not that I trusted you, that you spent 8 years consumed by hatred for someone who only ever tried to be your friend. That's pathetic. That's broken, and that's on you, not me." Sirens wailed in the distance. Maya's companions backed toward the entrance. Maya stood alone, face crumbling. "I'll never stop. I'll get out eventually." "No, you won't." Detective Chen stepped forward with uniformed officers. "Maya Torres, you're under arrest for escape, violation of court orders, trespassing, and terroristic threatening." Maya's bravado broke. She lunged toward Anne, screaming, but officers caught her. It took 3 of them to restrain her as she thrashed. "This should have been my life. Mine. I hate you. I've always hated you." They dragged her away, still screaming. The garden fell into shocked silence. Anne stood frozen, hands shaking. Her perfect wedding destroyed again. Tears started to fall. Not again. But then James was there, taking her hands. "We're not done. We're just getting started." He turned to the guests. "I know that was disturbing. If anyone wants to leave, I understand. But if you're willing to stay, I'd like to finish what we came here to do. I'd like to marry this incredibly brave woman." Margaret was the first to sit back down. "I'm not going anywhere. Let's have a wedding." One by one, the other guests settled. Anne's mother was crying but nodding encouragement. Even Emily wiped her eyes and returned to her spot. The officiant cleared her throat. "Well, that was certainly dramatic, but love stories worth telling usually are. Shall we continue?" Anne looked at James, seeing nothing but love and certainty. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." James squeezed her hands. "We're not letting her win." "Not again." Anne looked at the faces around her. Not judgment or pity, but support and understanding. They'd witnessed her deepest shame and chosen to stay. "Okay, let's get married. For real this time." Richard walked her the rest of the way down the aisle. Anne and James stood before the officiant, Emily between them, and spoke their vows. When James slipped the ring on Anne's finger, he added, "I promise to love you through every storm, even the ones that crash our weddings." When Anne put James's ring on his finger, she said, "I promise to trust you even when trust feels impossible, to build a life with you even when building feels scary." The officiant smiled. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you married. You may kiss." The guests erupted in thunderous applause, a standing ovation for a couple who'd fought their way through chaos to claim their happiness. Emily threw flower petals, shouting, "Finally." As Anne walked back with James, Detective Chen gave her a discreet thumbs up, mouthing, "She's going away for a very long time." The reception continued. People approached Anne not with pity, but respect, sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. Anne's father pulled her aside. "Watching you stand up to that woman today, I've never been prouder." As evening wound down, Anne and James stood together watching the sunset. Emily had fallen asleep on a chair. "We did it," Anne said softly. "We did more than that. You faced her in front of everyone and told the truth. You took back your power." James wrapped his arm around her. "Maya wanted to destroy this day. Instead, she gave you the chance to prove how strong you really are." Anne leaned against him. "What do you think will happen to her?" Detective Chen said, "Breaking out plus everything she did today will add significant time. Years. Maybe a decade or more. And when she gets out? If she gets out, we'll deal with it together." James turned her to face him. "But Anne, at some point, you have to let go of the fear. You can't spend the rest of your life waiting for Maya to strike." Anne knew he was right. "You're right, I need to let it go, starting now. I'm Anne Morrison. I'm married to an amazing man. I have a beautiful stepdaughter. I survived something that would have destroyed most people. And I'm done letting Maya Torres define my story." James kissed her forehead. "That's my wife talking." They collected Emily and drove home as a family. Anne felt something unexpected. Relief. The worst had happened. Again. And she'd survived. Maya had tried to destroy this day, and Anne had refused to let it be destroyed. She'd stood exposed and vulnerable and spoken her truth, and the sky hadn't fallen. People hadn't rejected her. She'd faced her nightmare in broad daylight and lived to tell about it. Whatever came next, she could handle it. Because she was stronger than Maya had ever realized. And love, real, messy, imperfect love, was stronger than hate. The morning after the wedding, Anne found James at the kitchen table with his laptop. "What's wrong?" she asked, pouring coffee. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right for once." James showed her a news article. "Woman arrested at wedding after multi-year stalking campaign." Wedding guests had been interviewed, all speaking supportively of Anne. "The prosecutor called this morning," James continued. "With the escape, the wedding crash captured on video, and her explicit threats in front of 40 witnesses, they're confident about a lengthy sentence. 12 to 15 years, possibly more." Anne set down her coffee. 12 years. And I'll spend those 12 years waiting, wondering if she'll come back. Or, James said gently, you spend those 12 years living. building our family, creating a life so full and beautiful that Maya Torres becomes nothing more than an unfortunate chapter in your past. Emily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Are you guys talking about the bad lady?" "Yes, sweetie," Anne said. "But the police have her now and she can't bother us anymore." Emily climbed into Anne's lap. "She said mean things about you, but I didn't believe her. You're not weak. You're the strongest person I know." Over the next few days, Anne returned to work. She'd worried about her colleagues' reactions after the wedding spectacle, but their response surprised her. Margaret greeted her with a hug. The development team had left flowers with a card. "Strongest fundraiser we know." Even the hospital board issued a statement supporting her. Anne realized that exposing her truth, however painful, had actually strengthened her position. People respected survival and honesty more than a perfect facade. Marcus Webb called with final information. "Maya ran at least 6 smaller cons after leaving you. She'd gone through most of the 4 million and was running low on money when she came back. This was partially revenge, but also about replenishing resources." "What about Oliver?" "Arrested in Florida attempting another con. He's facing 5 to 7 years on multiple fraud charges. He wants to testify against Maya in exchange for a reduced sentence." "Tell them yes. If his testimony helps put Maya away longer, I'm all for it." 6 months later, Anne sat in a courtroom for Maya's sentencing. James sat beside her, hand steady in hers. Her father had flown in from Boston. Oliver testified, looking broken and remorseful. He detailed how Maya recruited him, provided scripts for every interaction, and orchestrated everything. "She was obsessed," Oliver said quietly. "For Maya, it was personal. She hated Anne on a level I'd never seen before." When Anne gave her victim impact statement, she stood with surprising calm. "Your Honor, Maya Torres was my best friend for 8 years. When I discovered she'd been planning to betray me since the day we met, it broke something fundamental inside me. My ability to trust, my faith in my own judgment." Anne looked directly at Maya, who glared back. "Maya spent years plotting my destruction because she resented that I was born into wealth. But here's what she didn't take: my capacity to rebuild, my ability to find real love. She wanted me broken and miserable. Instead, I'm married to a wonderful man, raising a beautiful child and doing work I find fulfilling." The judge looked at Maya with clear distaste. "Ms. Torres, your actions represent one of the most calculated campaigns of psychological and financial abuse I've encountered. Your complete lack of remorse is deeply troubling." Maya stood, interrupting. "I don't need remorse for taking what was rightfully—" "Sit down, Ms. Torres." The judge consulted her notes. "The prosecution recommended 15 years. However, given the severity of your crimes and your continued threats, I'm going above that recommendation. Maya Torres, you are sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. You will serve a minimum of 15 years before being eligible for parole. Upon release, you will be subject to a lifetime restraining order prohibiting any contact with Anne Morrison, James Morrison, and Emily Morrison." Maya's face contorted. "This is wrong. She's the one who stole my life. Ms. Torres, you are in contempt. Bailiff, remove her." Maya lunged toward Anne. "This isn't over. I'll get out someday, and when I do—" Bailiffs grabbed her before she got close. As they dragged her from the courtroom, Maya screamed, "You stole my life. It should have been mine." The doors closed, muffling her voice. 18 years. Maya would be in her late 40s when released. Emily would be grown. That night, Anne and James sat on their porch watching stars appear. "It's really over," James said. "She's gone. For a very long time. I know I should feel relief, and I do partly. But she did break something in me. I still flinch at unexpected sounds. I still check locks 3 times. Give it time. Trauma doesn't heal overnight, but it does heal. We'll work through it together." Anne leaned against him. "Did I tell you Emily asked to change her last name to Morrison?" She wants us all to have the same family name." James was quiet, crying silently. "That girl is the best thing that ever happened to me, and you're the second best thing." 3 months later, Anne received a letter from Maya in prison. She stared at the envelope before opening it. The letter was 3 pages filled with explanations about jealousy, how Anne's kindness felt like pity, how the hatred consumed her. "I spent years planning your destruction, and when it happened I felt nothing but emptiness. I came back because I couldn't let go. I was obsessed. But Anne, I was the only one suffering. You moved on. I was stuck in hatred destroying me from the inside. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking you to understand that I was broken long before I broke you." Anne showed the letter to James. "This is manipulation," he said. "She's trying to make you feel sorry for her. Don't respond." Anne burned the letter in the fireplace. 1 year after sentencing, Anne stood in her kitchen watching James attempt pancakes while Emily provided commentary. "Daddy, you're burning them again." "I'm not burning them, I'm caramelizing them." Anne laughed, joining them. Flour covered every surface. It was chaos. It was perfect. Her father texted, "How's my favorite daughter and her beautiful family?" Anne snapped a photo of the disaster. James with flour in his hair, Emily with batter on her nose, burnt pancakes on the griddle, and sent it back. "Perfect. That's what happiness looks like." Emily climbed onto a stool. "Mom, when I grow up, will you teach me to make pancakes? The not burnt kind?" "Mom." It still made Anne's heart squeeze every time. "Of course. But Daddy's burnt pancakes have their own charm." After breakfast, Anne found herself thinking about the journey. 3 years ago, she'd contemplated whether life was worth living. Now she was here, married, raising a daughter, doing meaningful work, living authentically. Maya Torres was in prison, consumed by jealousy and hatred. Oliver was in a different prison. Both had destroyed their own lives far more effectively than they'd destroyed Anne's. Anne's phone buzzed with an email from Oregon Department of Corrections. Maya Torres had filed an appeal. The appeal had been denied. Anne deleted the email and felt something shift. Once, that would have sent her spiraling. Now, she felt only distant indifference. Maya was gone. She was a footnote in Anne's story, nothing more. Anne walked back to the kitchen where James was teaching Emily to load the dishwasher. She stood in the doorway watching them laugh together and realized something profound. She'd forgiven Maya, not because Maya deserved it, but because holding on to anger and fear gave Maya power she no longer deserved. Forgiveness wasn't about absolving Maya. It was about releasing the weight so Anne could move forward unencumbered. "What are you thinking about?" James asked. "How lucky I am. How much I love you both. How grateful I am that the worst thing that ever happened to me led me to the best thing." As Anne helped clean, with Emily chattering and James humming off-key, she thought about Maya's letter asking if Anne was happy. The answer was yes, not perfectly happy. No one's life was perfect, but deeply, genuinely, authentically happy. She had survived the worst betrayal imaginable. And in surviving, she'd discovered something Maya could never understand. That the life you build after devastation, brick by brick and choice by choice, is more valuable than any life handed to you fully formed. Anne Hartwell Morrison had been tested by fire and emerged stronger. She'd been broken and chose to heal. She'd been betrayed and chose to trust again. And that, far more than any revenge or punishment, was the ultimate victory. Anne smiled, tossing a dish towel at James when he splashed her with soapy water. Emily giggled. The afternoon sun streamed through the kitchen windows, warm and golden and full of promise. This was her life now. Real, messy, imperfect, and hers. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Anne survived the ultimate betrayal and found her strength again. Would you have forgiven Maya? Let me know in the comments below. If her story moved you, like this video and subscribe for more stories of resilience, justice, and redemption.